If you knew what your true yes was and what your true no was in all areas of your life, would you be able to choose faster and easier? What futures would those choices create? Everyone is capable of connecting to their bodies in a way to have more exuberant and joyful living now and in the future. Now, here is your host of Choosing a Different Future with Siris.
Hi everyone, I'm Siris Raquel Rivas-Verdejo, and you're joining me at Choosing a Different Future with Siris. Thank you for being here. Our topic today is bridging the gap between codependent and co-creative relationships. And if you're just joining us for the first time, this is coming from our listeners. So thank you, listeners. This topic is coming from you, particularly one that asked a question that I'll mention later. I am a family and child coach, and so I actually work with everybody in the family's interests and strengths and gifts so that everyone in the family can thrive. I do mediation and advocacy work in meetings for special needs and special abilities kiddos in schools. I provide speech and language therapy and a bunch of other resources to families. And then on top of that, I am a body and relationship coach. And what that means is that I connect with my body in a way that it awakens different energies in anyone that I'm interacting with. And I invite the people's bodies and themselves to have greater awareness so that they can have exuberant living their way. And then on top of that, I am the creator of a body process called the Living and Dying Body Process, where what you add to your life creates more, that's the living, and what you let go of creates more, the dying, not what we've been told of before. And so we actually have classes coming up about all these different things. There's different sessions you can book with me as well. The next events that are coming up are really, really exciting. I have the Being a Different Possibility for Families series is starting this month. We're going to have monthly calls, and this month's call that is on Monday, January 30th, will be on self-care in families. So you can find that on my website, empoweringlightlanguage.com, and go to the events section /events. And then we also have some awakening classes coming up. The awakening class is where people get to gift and receive the body process of the living and dying body process and get facilitation, manuals, infographics, audio recordings, all these different things. And this first one for January is going to be a two-part. So half day January 28th, half day January 29th. And then we do a follow-up Zoom to make sure you have any questions addressed that you may have as you're tinkering around and playing with this gentle, nurturing body process. We also have an awakening class in June 24th as well. That's going to be a one day instead of two half days. So you can check that out at empoweringlightlanguage.com/living and dying. And then we have the Expansive Energies group. This month's theme, we change the theme every month. This month's theme is the shape-shifting of healing past trauma, and super beneficial given what we're talking about today and anytime, because it's not just a one and done for a lot of us. We got to keep going and delving deeper and letting go more and more and more of anything we've held on to in our bodies and in our realities from the past. And while we can be here right in the present, right? That's also one of the things we're looking for. The other things to look out for as well is you can go ahead and check us out on the Inspired Choices Network at any time. I got some comments sent in directly, and also there's some comments underneath some of the videos. So one comment that I really loved was someone said, loved listening to JB and Rebecca. I'm reading this on learning to read your body to heal. That was last week's episode. Thanks for listening. The person wrote, it really made me aware of where I had been ignoring the messages my body was telling me. Thank you for having them on the show. Thank you for listening. I'm sure JB and Rebecca will be warm to know that you benefited from their discussion. I will pass the messages on. So thank you. That's great. And what would it be like if more of us listened to our bodies and the messages that it gave us, huh? Okay, and then another comment, what was the buy book you mentioned in the coming out episode? Okay, cool. So I actually brought that. You can see it for those of you that check us out on video. It's called Getting By. Here it is. Voices of Bisexuals Around the World. This is the second edition. So it looks like this. I got it many, many years ago now, so it might look differently. And the authors are Robin Ochs, O-C-H-S, and Sarah E. Rowley. Okay, so they're the editors of the stories that were submitted by bisexuals all around the world. Definitely recommend that. Thanks for asking. And then today's topic, like I mentioned, came from a question sent in by one of our listeners after they heard the When You Find It Hard to Receive episode. So you can check that one out as well. Highly recommend it. And they were asking if it was possible to receive yourself and more of yourself and what you'd like if you're in a codependent relationship. And so we're definitely going to get clear on that. Today's topic is bridging the gap between codependent and co-creative relationships. If you have any other future topic ideas and questions, I definitely listen to y'all to come up with new topics for you so you're getting what would be a contribution to you, your lives, and your families. So people, gosh, this topic. People come to me all the time wanting to get clarity on, should I stay? Should I go? Should I keep trying? Should I just give up? And one of the things that happens is after they explore their relationship patterns, after they explore their relationship beliefs, and they do the personalized exercises that I give my coaching clients, they get to look inside themselves and with confidence, knowing what actions to take next. So as you increase your awareness over the course of this discussion, you might get some ahas, and I'd love hearing the ahas of what action steps you can take moving forward. I'm going to provide some resources. I'm going to give you as many examples as I can fit into this episode today. And hopefully you'll walk away with knowing a little bit better about, okay, these are what next steps I can take. All right. So the description for today, I'm going to read that out loud as well, because it's going to cue up some really interesting energies in our bodies. So as I'm reading this out loud, make sure to stay with your body. Give it a squeeze. Hi, body. Hi, bodies. So what are the signs that you're in a codependent relationship? What if relationships could be a co-creative process where they could be mutually beneficial for everyone involved? Yeah, how's that feel? In order to avoid disappointment with dating, intimacy, and relationships, it's important to be aware of how prevalent these types of relationships can be and how to take preventative and proactive steps to stay away from feeling disillusioned or trapped. From keywords to look for to clear actions you can take, there isn't anyone that hasn't been impacted by the lies, toxicity, and downward spirals of these dynamics. Fortunately, there's hope. So we're going to go ahead and talk about all of these things and give you some more hope. If you know of somebody that is in a codependent relationship and you're maybe not sure if you're on track about this, you will definitely get clear by the end of this episode if either you or someone that you care about is in a codependent relationship and possible steps that you can take. Okay. Gosh. All right. So first, I want to make sure that people know that it is so common. And what most people talk about with codependent relationships, if that's even in their sphere at all, is they usually talk about it in the context of partners, spouses, and people that they're dating. And I don't want to ignore that. I don't want to discount it. I'm definitely going to talk about that a bit. One of the things that I specialize in is a lot of people come to me and actually had somebody send in a question. They said, Siris, let's see, I'm going to read this out loud. Where's the question? Yes, Siris, everyone always talks about codependency with their relationships, with their partners. Is it possible to be codependent with your kids? And absolutely yes. And I see it all the time. There's not a week that passes that I do not see that. The signs that we're going to look at that are the, hey, wake up, hey, rap, rap, rap. These are the alarm bells. These are the red flags that I'm going to be mentioning. Consider if maybe you know of someone, or maybe you're someone who has this type of relationship with their kids. I see it all the time. It's one of the things that I often need to address and support people through when I do my family and child coaching. Okay. And then on top of that, it can be in any context, including with work. So you can have codependent relationships with colleagues, with clients, definitely, and also with the actual companies or workspaces that you're navigating and working in. So it's prevalent everywhere: family, work, in personal life, romantic life, you name it. Okay. So I don't want you to think that, oh, if I'm not in a relationship, I'm not in a codependent relationship. That's not necessarily true. There are so many possible ways that this can show up, and that's part of what it makes it so tricky, because the other thing too is that it is so prevalent in our families and in where we were raised. I certainly learned it that way. I learned codependency and people pleasing and choosing people who are needy and valuing people who needed me. And so they were really needy and insecure. That was what I saw all over the place in my family, and how people then would create relationships so they fit those patterns of, I need to be needed. And so I need to ensure that this person is not independent, is not empowered, does not have a sense of confidence in themselves, because then they'll leave me, that maybe they'll run off. Okay. Have you ever had those types of thoughts where you are worried that someone's going to leave you, and you may be thinking of it all the time or more often than not? And that is one of those signs of, hey, I may be codependent if I'm constantly worrying about somebody leaving me or this particular person leaving me. Okay. So listen to yourself. As I mentioned some of these different examples, see if that's ever been a thought that you've had or that you've heard someone else express. Okay. And share this episode with your loved one. Say, hey, I was listening to this and it made me think of you. That's it. You don't have to go into fixing, saving, helping. Just show you're caring and say, hey, I thought of you. Take a listen to this. If you want to talk about anything that's on here, I'd love to talk about it with you. Very simple, because we don't want to go into fixing, saving, helping, which is part of codependency. I did it. Dun, 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 dun. CDs to the rescue. We're going to talk about functioning from fixing, saving, helping mentalities in an upcoming episode, I think in March, I want to say. Look at our upcoming episodes, register for it so you're notified. You don't want to miss that one. And I'm going to touch upon this just a bit today, because there's no way to talk about codependent relationships and move toward co-creative, mutually beneficial, all voices are heard and acknowledged types of dynamics without looking at this fixing, saving, helping piece. Okay. But yes, if you are listening to this and you're listening to the examples and you're like, oh, wow, I've definitely been saying that to myself, or I've definitely had these thoughts come up. It's not just, oh, if I have it, I'm in a codependent relationship. There's more questions to ask. And there's also about how often do you have this running in your world? The idea is we're going to move from however often it's running to having it less and less and less as you increase your awareness and as you start choosing different people, different behaviors, different ways of communicating, so that you can get to you having a co-creative relationship, one with yourself, and then two with anyone else you would like to be interacting with and creating with. Okay. So that's what we're going to go to today. I'm super, super excited. So it's time for our first break of the show. When we return, we were going to talk about these warning signs of being in a codependent relationship. You are listening to Choosing a Different Future with Siris, with myself, Siris, on the Inspired Choices Network. And when we return, we will continue to discuss bridging the gap between codependent and co-creative relationships. We'll be right back.
Most people haven't been taught how to listen and partner with their bodies in order to create lives that include clarity, pleasure, ease, and connection. Tuning in to Choosing a Different Future with Siris, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and resources on how to use your awareness of bodies and energy to your advantage. Siris is a family and child coach and therapeutic energy worker who will guide you to get clear and acknowledge what's brilliant, magical, and a gift about you.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Choosing a Different Future show with Siris. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. Connect with Siris through her website, empoweringlightlanguage.com. or send an email to empoweringlightlanguage@gmail.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. I am Siris Raquel Rivas-Verdejo on Choosing a Different Future with Siris. And today our show topic is bridging the gap between codependent and co-creative relationships. Our show is brought to you by True Science Activated Liquid Collagen. Liquid collagen is different, and it's a different and better supplement. Get real results that you can see and feel. To get $10 off of your first order and to get access to verified and before and after photos, email us at empoweringlightlanguage@gmail.com with the subject line liquid collagen. So before we went on break, we were starting to talk about why it would be beneficial for you to be aware of the warning signs of codependent relationships, and also how it's prevalent in all contexts. There's really no area of our lives where this cannot show up. And so it's really important for us to know this key information so we won't be at the effect and be blindsided. Next thing you know, you look up and you're like, how did I get here? How did I get here? And I definitely have woken up in different times of my life and asked myself that question. How in the world am I in this type of relationship right now? How in the world am I in the bathroom crying my eyes out, just feeling so helpless and so alone? How in the world am I here in this car driving, feeling like I am completely don't have any sense of choice? And I'm going to this event that I said I'm going to go to when I have absolutely no interest in going there, but I feel obligated to go. And so I said yes, instead of what my body was telling me and what I would have really loved to have said, which is no, please not something else. So, gosh, some more signs. All right, so I'm going to go through a couple. There are tons and tons, like there are books full of this. I'm picking things out, given some of the questions that were sent in and given some of the people that I've worked with and some of those things that we've actually addressed together. But what I do with my clients is I actually go through their different patterns that they've had with their relationships, and I create a personalized plan with them, given those patterns, what they'd like to have instead, and then what are the action steps that they can take that are unique to them for how to get from codependent to co-creative, from feeling hopeless to having hope. Okay, so do you ever feel responsible for other people's feelings, thoughts, actions, choices? If you do, and you're like, this is on me and I'm responsible. If they're happy, it's that I'm happy. If they're not happy, it's my fault. I have a client that I'm working with right now who is constantly worrying about if her daughter's happy or not. And to the point that I was like, are you happy? What if you were actually an example of happiness to your daughter? And this is an adult daughter that's living in another country. And she's constantly worrying and wringing her hands about if her daughter's happy or not. And I'm constantly asking her, well, not constantly, but pretty often asking her, okay, what would impact your daughter's joy and happiness more? You being miserable and worrying, or you're being happy and her having a model out there knowing, oh, this is possible for me to have this. I have a great model and mentor in my mom. I don't have to worry about my mom on top of me creating this joyful life. But when kids look to their parents, they're looking to see, hey, what's possible, what's not possible? What are the strategies and tools for me to navigate this world? And so when I see parents that are looking for their child's happiness, one of the things I look at are what are your actions saying to them? What are those messages that you are consciously and unconsciously conveying to them? And are those the messages that you would like to be conveying? And so the hand wringing, the worrying about somebody else's happiness beyond your own, is that what you would like your child to be thinking about? Is that the priorities that you would like them to have? For some parents, that is a value that they would like to instill in their kids. Everybody else first, and then maybe you can get the scraps and the crumbs at the end. That certainly was the model I had. My mom was putting everybody in front of her. She was putting us kids, the three of us, ahead of her. We are going to talk about it on the Limitless Azúcar series, where she's our guest. And we are going to have these different conversations about my childhood and her childhood and our work with families and children. And that was one of the things that she instilled, that then I had to deprogram and detox out of my body and out of my reality, because I saw her burnt out. I saw her, she wasn't having time for friends. She wasn't having time for massages and getting her nails done and the self-care. I saw her having a life that was really full of doctor's appointments and stress, and then teaching kids. And there was no room, there was no breath left for her. And it actually created in me like, oh, if this is what women in the world are doing, I don't know if I want to be a woman. I remember thinking that clearly as a kid. And I know that there are a lot of little girls out there that they're seeing the models that exist now. And man, are they getting different messages. I'm so happy about that. But back when I was growing up, every woman I was seeing was in burnout, in overwhelm, was doing everything for their family with not as much support for the men in their families. And if they did, it was still just a fraction of all the things that were on their plates. Okay. So if you have these things where you're responsible for other people's feelings and actions and everything, and you're adding that to your plate more and more and more, are you including you in the equation of your life? Are you including your joy in there in addition to feeling responsible for everyone else's joy? I wonder. Do you find yourself saying yes when you mean no to events, to what you want to do, to taking on projects at work? If you really want to say no, are you asking questions? Or are you always saying yes out of obligation? Or more times than not saying yes out of obligation? At work, we all have tasks and things that are assigned to us. And then there's people that do even more. They're doing a lot of, oh, I'm going to prove that I'm a good colleague, that I'm a team player. When I was working with the Chicago Public Schools, right out of grad school, I finished this dual master's program in speech language pathology and learning disabilities. And I just jump right in, and I'm in a full caseload with kids from all these different chromosomal disorders to, autism, ADD, ADHD, different learning disabilities, different communication challenges, and 44 different languages represented in my school. It was freaking awesome. I loved that the school culture and the actual school district at the time. I don't work with them anymore as directly. I consult with them. So it might have changed. So my colleagues out there, if you're in the Chicago Public Schools, let me know if it's better now, if it's different. But one of the things that I had was this sense of, we were told we had to go and run off and drop our whole caseload and do different evaluations somewhere else, but still had to be committed to and doing all the services that are legally mandated services on these individual education plans. And so they were setting us up to either lie or fail. Neither of which is something that I was comfortable with, neither of which is something that is congruent and matches the type of professionalism and integrity that I like to do for any aspect of my business. Okay. And so I realized pretty quickly, oh my gosh, if I don't feel like I can speak up, if I don't feel like I can say no in a job environment, in any environment, but let's keep going with this job environment for a minute, is that the type of job environment that I want to be working in? So a lot of people will come to me for business coaching because they were in transition. They're like, I'm done not feeling like I have choice, or that I can't really use all of my creative gifts, that I can't contribute to people with what I uniquely know. And so I'd like to have a transition from what I'm currently doing to something else. And that's what I did. I identified it around year 3 for myself, the year 3 of working with the Chicago Public Schools. And I said, I'm going to go till 5 years. That was my plan. It also was going to help me pay off some student loans to at least work there for 5 years. But between year 3 and year 5, when I left, and I did leave after year 5, I started researching and looking at what would I truly like in my work and with my career. And what are the places, what are the companies, what are the settings that I can work in that would match that and give me that? A lot of people try to make what is already toxic, abusive, or codependent work. And then let me just do a slight tweak. Instead of, what if you are willing to completely start from scratch, even if it is within that same company or that same setting, but not trying to make whatever position you're in fit your desires. It's very hard for them to do that versus, okay, start from your desires. And then is there a way for this to have that and for me to create that with this, or do I have to look somewhere else? Okay. And that same thing goes with relationships too. There is a thing of, oh, let's make it work. Let's look at what's possible, but it takes at least 2 people, if you're in a couple, to make those changes. And so you can be a leader within those relationships. You can be a leader within your family to start communicating differently, doing different, choosing different behaviors to be that example of something else. I often talk about how this client that I was mentioning earlier with her daughter, it's like, okay, you're doing these different dance steps. Let's say you're dancing right now, tango. Dun, dun, da, 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 dun, dun, da, 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 da. Okay. And then you would like to get to a salsa with your daughter, or you would like to get to a salsa with your husband, with your work setting. Well, you got to change the steps. And temporarily, you got to be the one that like teaches them, okay, I'm going to step here and then you turn, or you're going to hold my hand here. It's very different, the salsa, than a tango. They're both dances. They're both living. They both can be joyful. But if salsa is what's really calling to you, there are a lot of things you have to change to make it go from a tango to a salsa. Okay. And a lot of that is starting with, okay, do I step first, or do they step first? Do I step back, or do they step back? Am I going to turn to the side? There's so many things. And so one of the things that I'd like for all of us to look at with this is, are we willing to actually do something totally different, or are we trying to just tweak things and keeping us in the same box of the codependency. Okay, so it's time for our second break, lovelies. Oh my gosh, so much to talk about already. You are listening to Choosing a Different Future with Siris, with myself, Siris, on the Inspired Choices Network. And when we return, we will continue to discuss bridging the gap between codependent and co-creative relationships. We'll be right back.
Most people haven't been taught how to listen and partner with their bodies in order to create lives that include clarity, pleasure, ease, and connection. Tuning in to Choosing a Different Future with Siris, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and resources on how to use your awareness of bodies and energy to your advantage. Siris is a family and child coach and therapeutic energy worker who will guide you to get clear and acknowledge what's brilliant, magical, and a gift about you.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Choosing a Different Future show with Siris. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. Connect with Siris through her website, empoweringlightlanguage.com, or send an email to empoweringlightlanguage@gmail.com. Now, back to the program.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. I am Siris Raquel Rivas-Verdejo on Choosing a Different Future with Siris. And today our show topic is bridging the gap between codependent and co-creative relationships. Our show is brought to you by True Science Activated Liquid Collagen. Liquid collagen is a different, better collagen supplement. Get real results that you can see and feel, and to get $10 off your first order and to get access to verified before and after photos, email us at empoweringlightlanguage@gmail.com with the subject line liquid collagen. So before we were on break, we were talking about some of the signs, some of the things to look out for when you are wondering if you or someone that you care about is in a codependent relationship. So the other things to look for is if you're asking, is something wrong with me, or what's wrong with me? If you're blaming yourself for your relationships versus like, oh, we weren't compatible, or, oh, that wasn't a good fit at that job setting. Now I know what I don't like or what's not going to work for me. It's instead of looking at it as a pragmatic, like, oh, I just gathered some more information and now I know things better. If you go into blame and shame and guilt, if those are some of the things you're functioning from often, then you are probably functioning from a codependency in some way. Okay. And maybe some other things like poor self-esteem and confidence. Maybe you're still perpetuating some of the things that you were told as a child. Because remember, we talked about before our break that a lot of these models come from our families. So we've learned how to create codependent relationships from families and friends. And then on top of that, what if we could find models of healthy relationships and see what aspects of those healthy relationships are something that we could institute and have for ourselves? And that's one of the things that I like to look at. So one resource I wanted to mention is called the book, Divorceless Relationships. This book is written by Gary M. Douglas, who is the founder of Access Consciousness, a system of tools that I love and that has been really, really helpful to me. They have about 8,000 tools, and they're in over 150, maybe 170 countries around the world. And in this book, there's a chapter called What Am I Doing Wrong? And I'm going to read a section of that for you. All right. Innate wrongness is what you usually feel as a child. You know you are wrong, and that somehow it is wrong to be everything you are. What is going on here? You are getting projection from your parents about what wrong means to them. They may have looked at you and thought, well, that girl is trouble looking for a place to happen. And the energy you get is the wrongness of you. So here is an example from Dane's life. So Dane is the other co-founder of Access Consciousness. Dane's mother is gay, and Dane's whole family was afraid Dane would also be gay, which was wrong as far as they were concerned. So what was constantly projected at him? Their desire for him to be something that would never equal gay. Does that make him have to fit in a box that makes their world work? Yes. Where is Dane's choice in that? Dane's father, his mother, his grandmother, and his whole family took the point of view that, quote unquote, he's definitely not going to be gay. He may be sexual, but he's not going to be gay. So he was allowed to be sexual, but he was not allowed to have choice. He had to put out sexual energy towards every woman that he saw. When someone projects that kind of intensity of point of view on you, you will try to fit into their world instead of having your own. This is not about being gay or straight. This is about how you make yourself wrong, because wherever choice has been eliminated from your world based on the box your family tried to put you into, which had nothing to do with you, you come up with your being the wrongness of all things. Just sit with that for a moment. What were the things that were projected at you as a child? Often when I'm working with my families and I'm having these conversations with the caregivers and the parents, the foster parents, biological parents, it doesn't matter, step parents, we have to actually look at their childhood to see how it's unconsciously running and functioning and projecting into and onto how they behave with the children, if there are children in that family. There are a lot of things that will be running. And so I had to look at this for myself too. When I did my own self-work, I still look at this because there's these things that'll sneak up and you're like, whoa, who does that belong to? Which is one of the questions and tools that are mentioned in this book, the Divorceless Relationships books. Ask, if you have these thoughts come up, who does this belong to? Is that really mine, or was it projected at me? Am I picking up on that feeling, that thought from somebody else, that expectation about me? I was expected to take care of everyone, to manage the household, to make sure everyone was calm and comfortable, fed and warm, right? That they were entertained. If they weren't entertained, I was going to find something to entertain them. And so when I was starting to move away from that, I all of a sudden had to look at these gifts and capacities that I had for entertaining, for being aware of people's emotions and anticipating their needs. And instead of shutting those off, I'm like, I had to look at, okay, so how can I use this in a way that's healthy and not from obligation, compulsion, perseveration, okay? And so it's not about, oh, I'm never going to be kind. I'm never going to consider these things that I used when I was doing codependency. It's, okay, how can I use this in a healthy way? How can I use this and include myself and my sense of joy in this? So instead of a Thanksgiving meal in the past being like, okay, does everyone know what they have to do? I'm managing all of the tasks. Okay, this person's doing this and this person's doing that, or me controlling everything so it all gets done my particular way. I instead was like, hey, who wants to do what? I asked, who wants to take on what? Who wants to contribute what? When would you like to start? Let's vote on this. Everyone got a voice. Everyone got to pick and choose given what they would be really excited about, what they would want to cook and contribute to the meal, or if it's drinks, they could bring drinks, whatever that is. And we got to come all together knowing that we all were a part of co-creatively creating this beautiful moment of bonding, of creating different new memories together, and being adults in a very different way than we ever could have imagined when we were kids. If I had talked to my sister and my brother when we were growing up and would tell them what's going on now, they would have been like, get out of here. That's never going to happen. No way. Our parents sitting calmly and civilly and happily together in a loving way at this table, and there's no lawyers involved, there's no fights, there's no drama. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. No way. No one's yelling, no one's feeling like they had to defend and argue their points of views. Get out of here. What? And this is the things that can change it, that are possible when you look at your codependent patterns and start to eradicate them and eliminate them in order to move towards something more co-creative with your own body and your sense of knowing of what you'd really like to have as your life, versus like, oh, I don't get to have that. I got to make my life about everybody else or about this particular person, these particular few people. Because some people think that, oh, if I'm not a codependent person because I don't do it in all areas of my life. No, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. If you're doing it in any area of your life and it's not actually healthy for you, and you feel the sense of, I have to walk on eggshells when I'm talking to this person, when I'm interacting with this person, then that's something to look at and lean into and get some support with. Okay. So I love this book. I highly recommend it. Divorceless Relationships. I still refer to it. I have things underlined, highlighted, bookmarked, all these different things. And it's called Divorceless Relationships because it's about you not divorcing yourself. You're not divorcing from your awareness, from your body, and from yourself when you're in relationships. Because that's what a lot of people do. They start chopping off limbs. They start doing the things that they love to do in order to fit into the box of a certain relationship. So are you still doing the things that you love? Are you still seeing your friends? Are you still hanging out with your family as you are navigating your work relationships, your romantic relationships, your friendships? Or is it one of the prices of admission for working there, being with this person, hanging out with this person, you having to isolate yourself from the very things that contribute to you, and you feeling like, oh, this is my life, the one I'd really, really like to have? That's one of the signs that are super, super prevalent. And that's one of the things that a lot of parents don't realize. Oh, I'm in a codependent relationship with my child if I feel like there's no possible way for me to have a break and nurture myself. And it doesn't have to be hours and hours. What if it's 30 minutes a day? If you don't feel like as a parent you can carve that out for yourself, then you are probably creating a codependent relationship with your child. And it's not only dishonoring of you, it's also not sending a great message to your child. And so is that the message you'd like to send, where they feel like if they have kids, they don't get to have themselves? Okay. I'm going to talk about this a little bit further after the next break. But one of the other things I wanted to mention is I actually created a What's Wrong. Actually, it was a chapter. It was a 4-part series that I created a couple years ago, based off of a quick little intro taster that I did called "Have You Been Told the World Would Be a Better Place Without People with Special Needs?" And so many people came up and they were talking about the orphans that they work with in India and the foster kids that they work with. And, there was educators, there was people that felt that by them being anxious and having mental health issues, that the world would be better without them. And so we were looking at all of these different things, and we came to know the world is actually not a better place without these people that are often marginalized and unheard, even if that's the message that you're told. And so I did a more longer, deeper dive called There's Nothing Wrong with Me, Right? 4-part series. And it's actually in my self-paced courses section. So you can go in and grab it and play around with it and look at this for yourself. It's at empoweringlightlanguage.com/self-paced courses. No hyphens or anything like that. And it's really for anyone who has ever felt like they shouldn't be on this planet, that the world would be better without them. And if they would actually like to feel like they're a contribution to others and to the planet, including themselves. I'm always going to say including yourself in this. Definitely check that out. And if you have any questions about it, let me know. So it's time for our next break, lovelies. Oh my goodness, it's flying by. But let's do it. Let's have a break, grab a drink, take a moment, get a stretch in. And you're listening to Choosing a Different Future with Siris, with myself, Siris, on the Inspired Choices Network. When we return, we will continue to discuss bridging the gap between codependent and co-creative relationships. We'll be right back.
Most people haven't been taught how to listen and partner with their bodies in order to create lives that include clarity, pleasure, ease, and connection. Tuning in to Choosing a Different Future with Siris, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and resources on how to use your awareness of bodies and energy to your advantage. Siris is a family and child coach and therapeutic energy worker who will guide you to get clear and acknowledge what's brilliant, magical, and a gift about you. This is the Choosing a Different Future show with Siris. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. Connect with Siris through her website, empoweringlightlanguage.com, or send an email to empoweringlightlanguage@gmail.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Siris Raquel Rivas-Verdejo on Choosing a Different Future with Siris. And today our show topic is bridging the gap between codependent and co-creative relationships. So before we went on break, we were talking about some of the different things that we can do to actually start moving toward a co-creative relationship. I love the question that was brought up about who does this belong to? The tool that was brought up in the book, Divorceless Relationships, who does this belong to? I also love the Access Consciousness tool, Return to Sender with Consciousness Attached. Sometimes when you're feeling like the sense of obligation, the sense of guilt, and you're like, who does this belong to? It's perfectly valid. I'm working to give myself permission to not feel obligated to do this. It's perfectly valid for me to want to say no, for me to want to do something else, for me to leave this space. And I love using Return to Sender with Consciousness Attached. You either say it out loud or in your head, and anywhere from 3 to 20 times of saying it, you feel lighter and lighter, and you're basically returning those feelings, those thoughts, those emotions, those projections and expectations that were glopped on you from wherever in your life, and you return it to wherever it might have come from. And it's not necessarily who told it to you or projected it at you. It might be the grapevine of where they got it from, and that person got it from somebody else, and that person got it from somebody else, and it's not in your world anymore. So one of the things to look at as well is, are you waiting for permission or approval? That is a sign that you're in a functioning from codependency. Okay. I had a client that was so concerned that about doing coaching with me, especially talking to her husband first. She was we have a joint account. This is an expense that is a bigger expense. So let's go ahead. I need to talk to him, but I'm really, really concerned. And there was so much anxiety over this, even though her husband was the one that was saying, hey, I think you should get support and help with all the things that are going on so that you feel calmer and you have strategies. But because they have such a volatile relationship, and because she's had so much codependency and hand-wringing and in the past, she was thinking of every worst case scenario that would happen instead of, well, what is a way for me to present this? What is a way for me to communicate this? That it makes this a lot clearer and easier. And often it's talking about it in the currency of what that person values, what would be beneficial to them. Hey, by me addressing my mental health, you won't be annoyed by me being all reactive and blowing up all the time. You're going to see me calmer. I'll be more effective when I'm doing the things around the house. I'll be a more enjoyable partner. What would be beneficial to that person? So we looked at secure versus insecure language. We looked at the different considerations before bringing things up. And it was really, really helpful. She was able to, her husband was like, of course, go ahead and do it. It was totally supportive and has been supportive ever since. And it's important to note this isn't always the case with this husband. So she had some reason to be concerned. And at the same time, if we're going to go from a tango to a salsa, then we need to start taking different steps and not always it being a step back and a step back and a step back away from who we really are and the lives we really like to have. The other question to look at is, am I reliant on someone else to validate if what I perceive is true or not? If you're waiting for, oh, maybe this is true or not, let me check with all of my friends, with all of my family before knowing that this is a yes or a no for me. If you're constantly relying on everyone else's sign off and approval, then you are probably creating a lot of codependency. And I would recommend building up your own confidence. It's not that you wouldn't take other people's opinions into mind. I love doing that. It's a grain of salt. You have to look at their agendas, their experiences, their perspective, and it may or may not be relevant to you. So you have to really look at am I actually asking advice from, and is it actually going to be appropriate for me and relevant to me? And so one of the things I do with a lot of my clients that I walk them through is actually creating a joy list and looking at what is the things that bring them joy. And for each of us is different. Going through these different exercises on how to navigate that, and then them actually practicing confidence boosting activities with my support, having their back so that they can build up their confidence in listening to their own yes and no more and more and more, and them choosing what's going to bring them joy at the time that it's going to create the most with their bodies. And so that's a really, really fun thing to do and really, really helpful for people moving forward. If they actually want to get to a co-creative relationship with themselves and their bodies and with others. All right. Before I get to the next thing, there's a question that was sent in really quick. We're running out of time, but I don't want to miss asking this question. Somebody asks, what's the relationship between wanting to have sex or not in a codependent relationship? And I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, but I'm going to do my best to address it, because I really love when people send in questions, and it's a really juicy question. A lot of people that I work with, they are doing sex from obligation, from something that they have to do. It's part of the requirements of relationship, but not necessarily from a sense of joy. And so if you're ever doing sex and choosing sex because you feel like you have to and you don't really have a choice, then that's a big, big alarm bells, red flag for me, and for you to look at with it to signal to you that you're not only in a codependent relationship, that you may be in an emotionally or sexually abusive one. That's something for you to look at. And if you'd like to have a conversation with me about that, feel free to reach out. But I love that Esther Perel, she is an amazing therapist and coach, and she's been on a lot of different podcasts that I listen to, and I've been checking out her books. And Anna Kendrick, an actress that you may know, she was being interviewed by The Armchair Expert, that podcast with Doc Shepard, and she referred to Esther Perel's comment on this that I think is also going to be a contribution to you. And Esther Perel says, sex isn't something you do, it's a place you go. It's a place that you visit. And for me, and what I invite my clients to, is it's not just a place you go with somebody else, you can do it with yourself, and it's an enjoyable place. It's like nirvana, oasis, like the world goes away and you get to be more in touch with you and your body and potentially this other person. And that's a beautiful moment. And so if sex is something that you're doing versus a place that you're going, I invite you to look at that for yourself, my friend, and to reach out for some support so that you can create something different. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for sending in that question. All right, our next episode is going to be all about fun with many tongues. Conscious cultural competence is next week. So how much fun can we have playing with many tongues? Come and join us next week. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Choosing a Different Future show. Siris returns Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Mountain, and 7 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Until then, keep choosing what will work for you and your body, your own unique way honoring what will work for you.